Hello, reporter room investigators. I'm so glad to see you. Hi, Kimberly. Hi, Sheila. Come on in. Come on in. I'm going live a little bit earlier than I had originally planned. I thank you so much, Sheila. I'm going to tell you what happened to me. I am going to share that with you guys today. And I'm sorry I'm not on camera, but I'm still getting up and going. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, potential suspects, and criminals, and share with you how to consider crimes, suspects, crime scenes, and evidence. And everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion. So, please do your own research and also consider subscribing to Reporter Room. I don't know, if I'm gonna have a lot of people coming in because I haven't been live in 3 weeks. This is like um I'm just so getting back into the swing of things, but I wanna share with you guys, we're gonna start with Sebastian Rogers, and we're gonna be talking about that. I'm gonna share with you guys in a little bit what happened to me so that this does not happen to you, because what happened to me happened really fast, and I thank you so much, Mimi, I really appreciate it. So come on in, tell me where you're from, and I just want to start by just saying we are still looking for Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He's been missing. He was reporting missing on February 25th of 2024. Last proof of life was February 25th. Um, he was missing from Hendersonville, Tennessee. He's 15 years old. He's an autistic male, and this is his photo. Hey, Karen, this is our head mod, Njaz. I'm so glad. Where have I been? I have been through 3 ER visits, 1 hospitalization, and 2 surgeries. And I'm going to tell you guys what happened to me today. But I want to start by talking about this case. Hey, brother Mike, thank you so much for the $1.99. I really appreciate it. Welcome. Tell me where you're from. I'm glad you guys are with me today. I don't know how many people we're going to have in the chat because I haven't been live in a little bit. Hey, Direct Current. Welcome from Houston. Hi, Linda D. Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you guys what happened to me because it happened really fast. Um, and I don't know if you want me to start with that or if we should just go ahead and get into today's video. I guess I can tell you what happened to me first, while we have people coming in, and then we're gonna dig into it. So I had a very small um wound on me. It was like the size of a dime. It was on my chest near my heart, and I ended up getting sepsis, which is not contagious. It's when your body responds improperly to an infection. Um, and it can progress very, very fast. Death can occur within 12 hours. And I want to tell you what happened to me because I don't want this to happen to you. This happened so fast. I went downhill so fast. So I had been to the ER the night before, July 4th, or this was July 3rd. I noticed that I had it was like a little bit of a cyst, a sebaceous cyst, which is just, like a kind of an inflamed pimple kind of thing on my chest near my heart. But I did notice I had a change in mental status. I had confusion. I was shivering. I was feeling lightheaded and dizzy. And I also noticed that when I was going to the bathroom, I wasn't hardly putting out anything at all. I was having a lot of trouble staying awake. So this was on July 4th, the day after I went to the emergency room, and they looked at the wound and they drained it, and then they drained it and then they put me on an antibiotic. And I was having extreme confusion, and I think this is one of the reasons why sepsis is so lethal. Um, so it can be caused by uh, anything. It can be caused by pneumonia, a urinary tract infection, a catheter, a burn, or in my case, a wound. And you're more likely to get sepsis if you're over 65 or an infant, or you have a lower immune response. You might have, could be chronic diseases such as diabetes, kidney disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. None of these apply to me. You might have had an admission to an ICU unit or longer hospital stay, a catheter, breathing tubes, intravenous, treatment for antibiotic, and the last thing. None of these apply to me except for this one, a condition that requires a treatment with corticosteroids, which can lower the immune response. And for those of you that know me and have been with me for a while, you know that during the pandemic, I did catch, I can't say what it is, starts with a C. And so I ended up having ongoing lung issues from the lung damage that I went through. So I do use steroids sometimes because of that. So let me just bring in the next one. And I'll just tell you guys really quick what happened to me. Then we are going to talk about Sebastian Rogers. But I know I have been gone for 3 weeks. Okay, so this July 4th, I was having trouble staying awake. I was supposed to go live with you guys. I had a 4th of July party planned with a virtual tour of the Statue of Liberty. I had a fireworks show that I had put music to the day before. But I ended up just not being able to stay awake. I didn't know what was going on. I felt horrible. I didn't feel well. I was tired. I couldn't stay awake. And suddenly I realized I was hardly putting out any urine and I was really confused. And I had this overwhelming feeling that I was going to die. I just felt like I was going to die. So I called 911, even though I had family here. And this like threw them off because they're like, well, we'll take you to the emergency room. And I'm like, no, I need to call 911. It's a good thing I did. Because you go downhill very, very quickly. And by calling an ambulance, they were able to start fluids on me in the ambulance ride on the way to the ER. And I did not have to sit in the ER waiting to be seen. I got seen right away. And this may have saved my life. So some of the symptoms, I just want you to know what they are so you can, so this doesn't happen to you, because this is like something that nobody talks about, and it can happen so fast. You can start with some symptoms and then be gone in 12 hours. But you'll have some of the things you might have is an increased heart rate. I did notice my heart was beating fast. I had not taken my temperature, but I did have chills. I was confused and disoriented. And I think this is why so many people don't survive this, because the mortality rate is really high on this. I was clammy, and I just noticed I wasn't going to the bathroom, which is one of the signs of it, because it's your kidneys are starting to shut down. I was low energy. I felt weak. As I was in the ambulance ride on the way over, my blood pressure continued to drop and my heart rate continued to go up. And I was immediately brought back and seen by the doctor in the ER, and he diagnosed me with suspected sepsis. So it's not contagious. You can't spread it to other people, but it is really important. My blood oxygen level, that's the little thing they put on your finger that tells you what your oxygen saturation is, was low. Mine was like 89 or 90. So I was put on oxygen. I was put on fluids to get my blood pressure up. And I was put on IV antibiotics, and I was admitted to the hospital. So this was overnight, July 4th into July 5th. By the time I got admitted to the hospital, it was probably July 5th. And I was in the hospital, and I had a surgery while I was in the hospital. And then I had a follow-up surgery once I was discharged. So get attention immediately if you suspect this, because you can be gone in less than 12 hours. So probably you guys have heard of people that have gone into the hospital for one thing, and then you're just shocked to find out that they've passed away, right? But this is now your life expectancy, once you get it, decreases also. So you have to be really careful the first 5 years, because half of all sepsis survivors do not survive within the 5 years. Now they don't know if this is because of the sepsis or if this is because of something else related to the sepsis, but they do tell you to be really, really careful. So And then some of the things that I have been dealing with after, while I recovered, I had a second surgery, so I had to recover from that. But you could also have, I had definitely some insomnia. I didn't have any nightmares or hallucinations, but I did have panic attacks because anytime I felt like I was getting a little bit clammy, now it's summer, so it can be hot. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get sepsis again. Just anxiety about getting it again and going through this. I have not had joint or muscle pain. I did have some difficulty concentrating though, which is why I didn't go live until today, because I didn't want to come on and make a fool out of myself. um, that I did not have organ failure because I was seen so quickly, and because I called that ambulance. That probably because probably my kidneys were starting to go, but they didn't go. So after you get home, you'll be fatigued and weak. I have felt tired. Um, I have definitely felt tired. I did feel a lack of appetite. I actually lost around 10 pounds through all of this. So I have had a couple of the symptoms, definitely had some difficulty with concentration. I was seen at home by a home health care nurse, which is just really bizarre to me because I'm not older. I just never expected to need that kind of help, but I did need help with packing the wounds. So I just wanted to tell you what some of the symptoms are so that this never happens to you guys. Um, I don't want you guys to go through what I went through. And so let's go ahead and start talking about the Sebastian Rogers case. So I just wanted to update you. Where have I been? What has been going on with me? Um,
Now coming up.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a theory in regards to the Sebastian Rogers case. I do want to say hello to chat. Let me just check in. I don't know how long I'm going to go today. I'm going to just go as long as I feel like I'm able to comfortably, because the goal is to just, keep getting better. So we're going to talk about a new theory in the Sebastian Rogers case. And let me know if you guys have ever had sepsis, or if you know someone who had sepsis, and maybe they didn't get help in that 12-hour window, and really the first 1 to 3 hours is really critical. And this is so common and no one's talking about it, but more people pass away from sepsis than do of cancer and HIV combined. That's how lethal it is, and nobody is talking about it. So come on in, tell me where you're from. Hi YouTuber, hi Crispy Critter, hi Direct Current, hi, Linda. This is our head mod. And just thank you to all our mods and our channel members. I'm going to thank all of our channel members. In fact, let me do that right now, for hanging in there with me. I'm so sorry if you became a recent channel member. And I'm so sorry. I know this is like, you didn't get what you were supposed to get from me, which is regular live streams. But I do want to thank our VIP, Red Carpet, Autism GMA, our producers, George Brown, and Jazz, Sasha Angel, Not So Saintly, Debbie Joe, and Jane J. And our channel members. I'm not ending, obviously. We haven't even gotten started yet, but I do just want to say thank you so much for your support. I could see your messages on YouTube. I just didn't have the strength to reply to you guys. So we're going to talk about Sebastian Rogers, and a very interesting theory. And I'm going to show you some statistics that why this theory, I believe, is definitely worth considering. Um, and let me just pull up a picture of Sebastian real quick. I had him at the beginning and then I closed it out. Let's see. Okay, there's a nice one. Let me share this one. Okay, so I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about so we're going to be talking about the new theory in the Sebastian Rogers case. We're going to be talking about profiler Pat Brown's initial assessment and analysis. I shared with you what happened to me. If you didn't see it, you can back up the live stream. But I was watching a video. This is prior to all of this happening with profiler Pat Brown. And she did a take on the grilling of Chris and Katie Proudfoot, and she watched the Nancy Grace interview, and she saw some red flags. She described them as, quote, problems. And she said that one of the issues that she had was the fact that every parent remembers the last thing that their child says to them when their child disappears or gets abducted or passes away or something like that. But yet, we have Katie saying that when she put Sebastian to bed, he said that he loved the puppies, he loved her. And I know some people in the comment section have been saying Katie did not put him to bed. So maybe she shouted for him to go to bed and he shouted back, I love you and I love the puppies. But there was some kind of an interaction there. Um, but if I feel like if he said that he loved her, then in my opinion, Katie would have been in close proximity to Sebastian. So I'm not saying she was literally tucking him in, but and I don't even know if this really happened or not. But Pat Brown had a problem with the fact that Katie then added on later at 10 p.m. that his last words were that she told him to go to bed, and he said, "Yes, ma'am." So his last words were not, "I love you," but "Yes, ma'am." And she felt like Katie should have remembered what his last words were. She also brought up in the Nancy Grace interview where Nancy Grace asked the Proudfoots if they took polygraphs, and Katie had said she took one and passed. Now, Pat Brown, profiler Pat Brown, pointed out that we don't know for sure that Katie passed. We have her word for it. Law enforcement has never told us this. But Pat Brown had a problem with the fact that Chris Proudfoot said he did not take a polygraph when he was asked. And when he was asked by Nancy Grace why he had not taken a polygraph, he said that he offered to take a polygraph and he said, quote, over and over, end quote, again, but that law enforcement wasn't worried about him because he was out of town. Now, Pat Brown, again, she's a professional profiler. She did not think that law enforcement would have told Chris Proudfoot not to take a polygraph, especially when he's offering to take it, quote, over and over, end quote. She said that law enforcement would have jumped all over that because, in Pat Brown's opinion, this is a, quote, an interrogation technique. A a lie detector test is an interrogation technique. And so she pointed out it doesn't matter if Chris Proudfoot was out of town or if he was in town, because he would still know something about what happened back at home with Katie and what happened at Sebastian, or possibly he could. She didn't say he absolutely would, but that he could. She also pointed out that law enforcement would have probably wanted to know if Katie had told Chris Proudfoot anything about what happened to Sebastian that day. Again, law enforcement's going to be looking for any discrepancies in the stories that are being told. So I think it's interesting that law enforcement has not released the body cam footage of when they first responded to Katie Proudfoot after Chris called the sheriff's office. So Pat Brown also thought another question might be that you would want to ask on the polygraph is to Chris Proudfoot is, do you know if Sebastian is alive? And she thought another question that if she were doing the polygraph, what she would want to know is, did you help in any way? So Pat Brown was emphatic here. And she said that even if Chris and Katie knew that even if law enforcement knew, sorry, that Chris was out of town, they still would have, quote, absolutely wanted to do the polygraph, end quote. So she did not buy this whole thing of that Chris offered over and over again and that law enforcement said no. So then Pat Brown addresses, and we're going to go through a new theory, a very interesting theory, and I have some statistics that I want to share with that. Um, but then from a mother with an autistic child, and then Pat Brown addresses the question of Nancy Grace, and and the fact that Nancy had asked Chris, had he ever um, you know, put his hands, I'm watching my words, on Sebastian. And she shared that Chris said that he only had done this, put his hands on Sebastian one time. And and he did it because Sebastian lied and that this was the belt incident. And then Pat Brown said that Chris said, quote, CPS was not involved. But Pat Brown points out that in the interview that Chris Proudfoot did with Smiley on Smiley's Story World, where he said that CPS had been called on him in not one, but multiple states. And he said he named that CPS had been called on him in New Mexico and also in Tennessee. And Chris Proudfoot said that the story that Sebastian didn't have said in that interview that Sebastian didn't have a belt on, and that's why he used a belt. So two different stories. And so Pat Brown said that, do you know this would prove that she felt like this proved that Chris Proudfoot was willing to not tell the truth, willing to lie to Nancy Grace about Child Protective Services. And we know Child Protective Services did go to the Proudfoot home from another source besides Chris Proudfoot. And the source on this one is Seth Rogers, who says he got the reports. Now, Pat Brown, so she did this analysis prior to Seth Rogers getting these reports. And she pointed out that there had been CPS complaints and that they had to follow up on these at least twice. So then she also pointed out that Chris Proudfoot told Nancy Grace that he had only ever put his hands, I'm watching my words here, on Sebastian one time, and that was because he lied. So this is straight up lying by Chris Proudfoot, in my opinion, because he told a completely different story to Smiley on Smiley's Story World. So I do think that her analysis was really, really good. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second. But I want to play this video for you guys. And just let me grab this really quick. Okay, so this is a TikToker. Let me see. And her name is Julie Skolnick, and her TikTok is Julie Skolnick 739. And she is a mom of an autistic teenager. And she actually did a lawsuit. Let me show you this. This is her. This is started by Julie Skolnick. You can see her name right there. So she started a lawsuit, a petition. And she says, as a person who loves a profoundly autistic child, I am deeply saddened and troubled by the idea that a mean-spirited neighbor who may have had other interests would use the court system to target Zeke, a level 3 nonverbal autistic child, and have him declared a, quote, public nuisance. My son, like many others with profound autism, engages in vocal stimming. It's part of his disability. The alarming situation is hurting the family of Zeke in San Jose, California, for no other reason than he has profound autism. So she started a petition, and I just wanted to share with you a little bit about who she is and why I think why this particular video grabbed my attention. So we're going to watch it together and discuss. Let me make sure let me scroll this down a little bit so you guys can see it. Okay. So this is Julie.
Part 7
Skolnick.
About Sebastian Rogers, the 15-year-old autistic boy from Hendersonville, Tennessee.
And before I get too far into this, can you guys just let me know if you can hear her?
Who went missing on February 26th. We are now coming up on nearly 5 months since Sebastian went missing. As a parent of autistic children, I do not want this case to go unsolved. I want the people responsible to be held accountable.
Okay, so can everybody hear her? Let me just... Yeah, it is. It's really scary. Thank you so much for your kindness, you guys. And I'm so sorry I missed our 4th of July. Thank you so much, Njaz. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to see you guys. Mike still wants to have our 4th of July party. I do have everything saved. I don't know. I might just save it for next year. So, but anyway, can you guys hear this okay? Let me just scroll down. Real low. It's low. Okay, you can hear it perfectly. Okay, you can hear it. Okay, so just let me know if I need to boost the sound at all, and I'll boost it.
Everything I say is based on my own opinion, my hypothesis, my theory. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This is based on allegations and not facts. In the last video I made, part 6, series I'm making about what I believe happened to Sebastian Rogers, I was talking about my theory that Sebastian Rogers was sedated the night of February 25th.
So she has multiple parts, and the part that I'm sharing with you guys is part 6 or part 7 of her series. Okay, so she's got multiple parts on this case.
The last video, I talked about autistic children at different periods in their lifetime would take medications, and the introduction of medications would not be something that would be resisted or suspicious to an autistic teenager. I don't really know if Sebastian put himself in black clothing before he went to sleep, or if after in a sedated state, he was changed into black clothing. Either.
Okay, so she doesn't know if he dressed himself or if someone else dressed him after, and she feels that it's possible that he was actually put to sleep. And by that, she just means sedated, which is similar to the theory that Seth Rogers also had.
Is possible. My theory as to what happened the night of the 25th into the early hours of the 26th of February is that Chris Proudfoot was in Memphis and Katie Proudfoot was at their home in Hendersonville. They spoke on the phone until nearly midnight, February 25th. Chris's cell phone is in Memphis area and Katie's cell phone is in Hendersonville area. It's about a 3-hour drive from Memphis to Hendersonville, and it is about 3:10 a.m. when small lights carried by 2 different people possibly were captured on video from the house of a neighbor.
So those of you that have been with me for a while, we have gone through the lights video. And so this again goes back to what Pat Brown was saying, which, she just wondered why Chris Proudfoot wasn't telling the truth to Nancy Grace about taking the polygraph. Was there a reason that Chris Proudfoot, sorry, that's my alarm. But was there a reason that Chris Proudfoot didn't want to take that polygraph? Because remember, Nancy Grace set one up for him and he didn't show up for that either.
That would make sense if Chris would have left the Memphis area on or before midnight to go back to Hendersonville to get the sedated Sebastian. So there was a dark car and the street was dark.
And we've looked at the lights video together, and we have all seen that car that shows up on the CCTV camera that was taken from a neighbor's camera. And we've seen that car with the headlights and the taillights clicking on that was clearly sitting there. And we've all seen the light that came from in the vicinity of the Stafford court area. And we don't know if it was one person with a flashlight. Some people think it's 2 flashlights, and somebody else was waiting with another light nearby. But let's continue on and listen to her theory, and then I'm going to go into the statistics.
The floodlights that they have on their house were not on and did not come on for whatever reason. Because, as I said, when parents of autistic children decide to their children, it is always planned. This picture here that I'm in front of is near the construction site that was near the retention pond that is near the high school that Sebastian attended, which is 1 mile from the home of the Proudfoots.
So they wouldn't have had to have gone that far, according to Julie.
So things progressed very quickly from around 3 in the morning on the 26th until Chris arrived back in Memphis on the 26th. We saw images of the small, possibly flashlights at around 3:10 a.m. and they were able to find that there was a dark car on the street where the Proudfoot house is. Based on my research from my book, frequently mothers who their autistic children want it to be over very quickly. If they can, they don't want to really handle the body after.
So let's talk about that for a second, and then we're going to come back to this. Let's talk about what the statistics actually look like for this. So this is my source on this is the National Library of Medicine. This is a peer-reviewed journalistic article published on PubMed Central. And so, then I'm going to really watch my words here, but recent research indicates that children with autism are at increased risk of maltreatment. They discuss how young people with autism can be done away with, and who typically is the person that does it. So they also they share. So this is why I wanted to share like what the statistics are on this, because I think it's definitely worth considering. And is this why Seth feels like um something was done to Sebastian? We know he felt like Sebastian was over medicated, either intentionally or unintentionally. I think at least he has expressed this in the past. So during a 20-year study, they did multiple media articles with 52 incidences of uh, children with autism who were done away with. And the males accounted for 90% of the victims. That's like a staggering statistic. So the majority of the perpetrators were parents, with mothers and stepmothers being 28.8%, and fathers and stepfathers being 25%, and grandparents making up 5.8%. In two of the cases, both parents were identified as the perpetrators. So the average age of the parents who did this was 37 years old. So I think the statistics back up what she is saying. And again, this is a mother of an autistic child. She has done some activism on behalf of autistic children. And I just think that, and we're going to get back to her video in just a second, but let's talk about how this was done. And so the most common was with a pew pew. I'm watching my words. The second one was drowning. And then the third one was some type of stopping them from breathing. I'm watching my words. So of the 34 incidences, but also on this is medication right there. Medication right there, which is what Seth said he was concerned about. So why do they do this? Common themes that emerged in the research. Again, this is a peer-reviewed article. I hope I'm not getting too wonky, but I just did want to back up what she's saying with what the research does, back up what she's saying could have happened as well. And again, this is a theory. This is not a fact. But common themes that emerge from the article details the circumstances, including variations of the victim or the child is just a handful and a burden. The perpetrator says that they had no life because of the child. They didn't want to have a child with autism. And reports citing the victim's behaviors included the victim was punished for attempting to keep the autistic child from breathing. So, and I'm watching my words here. So I do think that this peer-reviewed study, which is, let me see if I can give you guys the title in case you want to look it up. It's right here. This is the title: H Incidents Involving Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder as Victims, as reported as the U.S. news media. And again, my source is PubMed Central, the National Library of Medicine. So with that, just going through that, I hope I'm not getting too wonky for you guys, but I just did want to say that, this is why I wanted to share this with you. So again, we're talking, let's go back to the video now. So this is Julie Skolnick. She is a mother of a autistic child. This is part 7 in a series that she did. I'm not going to play the whole series, but I just want to play this one part, and then encourage you guys to watch the rest of her series on TikTok.
Afterwards, and they want to get out of the space where the body is as quickly as possible. If it was an option for just Chris to carry it out and not Katie, I believe the biological mother, would choose that Chris would do it alone out of her sight. think
So she feels really strongly that, just based on the research that she's done, that it's more likely that Katie would have preferred that he does this. Although the statistics that I just showed you, um, the mothers are the biggest, mothers and stepmothers are the biggest perpetrator at 28%, whereas fathers and stepfathers make up 25% of the type of people who do these type of crimes.
Katie helped Chris get Sebastian in a medically sedated state into that dark car with Chris. During the search for Sebastian on the 26th, a police officer with a canine searching the wooded area behind the construction site and towards the retention pond. The dog picked up a scent. The police officer also saw footprints near the water, and the dog went into the water. This picture you see here with the words was from a phone call between that police officer dispatch and another police officer who was in a car searching for Sebastian. In this video, whoever wrote it out, they say this officer said, "We're behind Willow Boulevard." Actually, it was Willow Bend Drive. In blue, you see Willow Bend Drive. Above my head, you see Beach High School. In between, you see this retention pond.
So the retention pond is right here. So this is Beach High School. This is Willow Drive right here. And then this is the retention pond where they found bare footprints and the dog jumped into it.
New housing was going up on Willow Bend Drive. That is where construction was being done. So it was a darkened street. There was houses that were unoccupied. There were houses that hadn't been built yet. It was a quiet area, and it would be a convenient, close spot for Chris to drive to park the car on Willow Bend Drive and then carry him towards the retention pond. This map you see here is actually from the street, Stafford Court, where the Proudfoot house is.
So that would be right here. Okay, this is Kellen Lane, which that house that we had the security footage that showed the car was right here where the car lights came on. And then the flashlight, the lights video that we went through in a prior live stream would have been coming right here with the car parked right here. And then the house that had the video of the car turning itself on around 3:20 a.m. was right here. So you could see how close that is to this retention pond.
To Willow Bend Drive. It is less than a mile, and it could be done with just a couple turns. If you know the area well, you could possibly drive it without lights on. Again, near this pond up here, behind.
So she is talking about this pond, not this one. She's talking about this one.
Willow Bend is where the canine dog with the police officer saw footprints and had picked up a scent and went into the water. I'll continue in part 8. This is part 7.
So I'm not going to play all her parts because I don't want to take anything away from her work. I just wanted to bring attention to her, and also just I want to talk now about Pat Brown and what her feelings are on this, and sort of tie this up in a bow together. So and again, Pat Brown did this analysis back when Nancy Grace did her interview, which was now, it's been a while. But Pat Brown did point out that we do have proof that Chris Proudfoot did put his hands on Sebastian, not just once, but at least twice. And she feels like she says, quote, you caught you on that one. And she's talking about the lie. So to be clear, this is a professional profiler, Pat Brown, who's doing the analysis of the Nancy Grace interview of Chris and Katie Proudfoot. She also picked up on the fact that Chris Proudfoot repeatedly refers to Seth Rogers as the, quote, bio dad. And she thought that this was very disrespectful. And she felt that even though Chris Proudfoot kept claiming they had a great relationship with Seth Rogers, well, we now know. Remember, this analysis was done prior to the motorbike rally when everything started falling apart. First they said they were going to work together, and then everything fell apart with Seth Rogers. But she said at the time, and this tells you what a good profiler that she is, she said she did not think it was a good relationship. So mind you, this profile was done, 3.5, almost 4 months ago. So this is well before we all got to see how much animosity there was between Chris and Katie Proudfoot and Seth Rogers. So Pat Brown was right on the money with that. She also points out that Chris Proudfoot claims that law enforcement told them that they had been cleared. That law enforcement, he claimed on Nancy Grace that law enforcement had told the Proudfoots that they had been cleared. Now, law enforcement at that point had not told us that anyone had been ruled out, that anyone had been cleared. And Pat Brown is a professional, and she said that there is no way that law enforcement would have or even could have cleared Chris and Katie Proudfoot. She pointed this out, and she emphasized that because mom was at home, that's Katie Proudfoot, and Katie was the last person to see Sebastian, that there was no way that law enforcement could just clear Katie because they don't have Sebastian yet. They don't know exactly what happened to him. And then Pat Brown elaborated that if law enforcement did tell the Proudfoots that they were cleared, that maybe it was just, if this is even true. Now remember, we've already caught Chris Brown lying to Nancy Grace about the putting his hands on it. With the one time it's because Sebastian lied, another time because he didn't wear a belt. But she said that maybe it was just an interrogation technique to keep the Proudfoots talking. So this is me paraphrasing Pat Brown. I'm not verbatim quoting what she said. She also talked about the fact that that Nancy Grace asked Chris Proudfoot when he was last at home. And Chris Proudfoot said he had not been home since early February. And Pat Brown pointed out that Chris Proudfoot was portraying himself in the Nancy Grace interview as Sebastian's father or stepfather. But, she asked a really important question and posed a really important idea here, which is, how can you be a parent to someone if you're not there? She also shared that even when Chris Proudfoot was coming home, he was only coming home every other weekend. So again, this would have left Katie alone the vast majority of the time, parenting an autistic teenager on her own. Are you watching closely? So I'm going to share some more information with you on that. Let me just check in with chat. I didn't realize, let me put up a picture of Sebastian. Let me grab this. Okay. So I just want to have a picture of him. We'll change the picture up to this one now. All right. So let me check in with chat and just see where you guys are at on that. Welcome to our new member, Jill. I'm so glad. Thank you. Welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you. Channel members allow me to be able to cover some of these smaller niche cases. So thank you for supporting the channel. This is our head mod and Jazz. Aunt Kimmy says, hi everyone, long time no see. Jill says, I just renewed my membership. Thank you so much. I know you guys probably were wondering where I was. I did try to post updates, but I just didn't have the energy to respond to the updates that I was posting. So, I just did the best I could. But Karen says, if the FBI pulled them into interrogation separately and presented this idea, at least one of them would break, in my opinion. Yeah, we don't know if that's happened or hasn't happened. We do know that they both left the state to Katie was going to accompany Chris to work. Those are Katie's words, not mine. So do you think it's possible this is why he had Katie come with him, so that she couldn't be questioned separately from him? Addis said, I think that Sebastian was a thorn in Chris's side. Chris wanted Sebastian out of the house. They treated Sebastian as if he was an embarrassment, a burden, and Katie chose her husband over her son. And Jazza says, welcome to Aunt Kimmy. Hi, Zoots and Boots. What level of chemical restraint therapy is legal in Tennessee? Let me find out. Let me look. I don't know if any level. But let me pull it up for you guys. Okay. So my sourcing on this, let me move myself out of the way. My sourcing on this is the Tennessee Department of Mental Health. So let's see. Chemical restraint is a medication that is prescribed to restrict the person who's receiving it, their freedom of movement or control for extreme violent physical behavior. Chemical restraints are medications used in addition or in replacement of the service recipient's regular medication therapy to control extreme watching my words, physical behaviors. So first of all, they have to be hospitalized. So I don't think you can just do this at home. If they're isolated, I think they have to have somebody with them at all times. So it has to be somebody with a licensed professional that's ordered this or is doing this. You can't just decide to do this on your own at home in the state of Tennessee. So you cannot do it you cannot use this is called the chemical restraint. You cannot do this for the sole purpose of just controlling somebody. So I hope I've answered your question. That's a great question. Flickery afoot says the dog would not have jumped in if no scent. Pepper says, I commend you. So many parents quit on these babies. I myself have a nephew that's autistic and he is precious. Yeah, I know we have a lot of moms and dads in here that have children with autism. You know how beautiful and wonderful they are. Addis says, I think Chris chased Sebastian into that pond. That's why the dog jumped in my opinion. Yeah. Oh, please consider subscribing to Reporter Room. Yeah, I just want to get the channel back on track. Kimmy says, what's so sad is there are resources, so many resources for parents of autistic children so they don't feel alone when they're overwhelmed. They have options. Thank you so much, Sue. Really appreciate the thumbs up. Karen says, Chris would have needed to try to convince us, wouldn't have needed to try to convince us that they just got along so well with Seth. Plus, Seth was being left in the dark by them. Thank you, Pen Jam. Lisa said, is there a link to other parts of mom? I can get the link. I will drop a link after the live. That's a great question, Lisa. I'll drop a link in the description after if you guys want to watch her other parts of her video. And this is on TikTok. It's not on YouTube. Addis says, I think that Chris chased Sebastian into that pond, and that's why the dog jumped into the pond, and also how Chris knew it was knee deep, in my opinion. Lisa said, this has gone on so long. She doesn't, someone's either hiding him from us or he's no longer with us. I'm watching my words. CPS failed him. The school failed him. The police failed him. And Jazz shares, I have raised an autistic son. He's 28 now. It hasn't and isn't easy at times, but I couldn't be more proud of her. I'm glad you guys could hear her. Leslie said, you're such a great mom. And Jazz. All right. So let's go through some more of what Pat Brown talked about. Now, mind you, she did this profile before they had the bike rally for Sebastian Rogers. So before Chris Proudfoot had, approached Seth Rogers, which was prior to the bike rally, about them all working together. And then prior to everything falling apart between the Proudfoots and Seth Rogers. So she was spot on in her analysis of Chris Proudfoot. So she also points out that 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 at this point in the interview with Nancy Grace, we all learned that Chris wasn't coming home for the month of February. He was just home for some of the months and prior months. So Chris Proudfoot has claimed that he's the parent, and what he's claiming now is not what he claimed in earlier interviews, like the one that I shared with you from the Duchess channel. In that interview, he referred to Katie as, quote, the mother, and used very bizarre language. But in subsequent interviews, after watching other people analyze what he was saying, he adjusted his script. He adjusted how he was talking about it. And now when he goes and talks on interviews or on his later interviews, he says he's the father or a parent to Sebastian, the stepfather or a parent to Sebastian. He refers to Sebastian as his son. But in that interview with Duchess, one of the earliest ones, he referred to Sebastian as Katie's son. So I do think that it's really interesting that he wasn't coming home. And this is also backed up, in my opinion, not just by what Chris Proudfoot has said, but by what you guys have pointed out, which is that we don't have any recent pictures of Chris Proudfoot and Sebastian together. I mean, nothing that looks like it was within the last year or two. So Chris Proudfoot, I think Pat Brown is right. He really isn't a father. I'm referring to Seth as the bio dad was disrespectful. Pat Brown also had some other good nuggets of information to share about, and I definitely think it's worth going back and watching her profiling that she did on on Nancy Grace's interview, and watching what actually turned out to be true. And so this is, one of the beauties of being on YouTube is that we can see that she was working and doing her research as a professional profiler. And I'm not showing her video because she doesn't really like for people to show her videos. And so I just want to, respect her boundaries on that. But I definitely think it's worth watching. If you want to go to her channel, she had some other interesting things to share. I'm not going to share everything that she went through, but I do think that, I have so much respect for the amount of work that she does to put together one of her videos. And whether we're talking about, profiler Pat Brown or analyst Peter Hyatt or statement analyst Steve Johnson, they are all really good at what they do. And there is a reason that they're experts, and there's a reason that they're working with law enforcement and often even training law enforcement. So let me check in with chat and just see where we're at on this. I'm so glad you guys are here with me today. Thank you so much. And thank you again for all your kind well wishes. I really appreciate you guys. Yeah, please give this a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel. Kimmy said, what is so sad is that there are resources, so many resources for parents, autistic children, that they just don't feel alone when they're overwhelmed. They have options. So I will link that for you. I think I backed the chat up a little bit too far. Yep, I did. Okay. So Pepper says, girl, you're right, girl. It's nuts that takes effort and the weather, whether we like it or not. The fact is that some people that should never be parents. Yeah, we see that a lot. Zoots and Boots says, no hope for people like Chris. He probably, I don't know. Let's leave the politics out of it. I know it's like all ginning up, but I know people have really strong feelings on both sides. But I want to try to create a true crime community that just leaves that at the door when we come in, and just try to create a safe space where we can just focus on that. So anyway, I know everybody has strong feelings on it. I respect everybody's point of view on it. But I just don't want to bring that on into the channel. I hope that you guys understand. There just really are strong feelings on both sides for that. Thank you. No, says Katie Proudfoot and Chris Proudfoot. She thinks that they did it. Sadly, she says, I just don't know what to make of Seth's behavior these days. He has to suspect Katie Proudfoot. Is Seth in denial? I don't know. Seth is going to be doing an interview tonight with Gabby Petito's dad, Joseph Petito. I believe that's tonight at 7 p.m. So you might want to be on the lookout for that. Lisa said, my theory is someone stopped at the pond to wash up. Maybe their hands or their shoes. That's a really interesting theory, Lisa. Per the law enforcement radio, they found a boot and a barefoot print. Dogs caught scent in the pond and the water holds the scent. Wow, that's a great theory, Lisa. Very, very interesting. Welcome to everyone coming in. This is Christy saying this. Hit the thumbs up button. Thank you. Lisa says, allegedly, in my opinion. Yes, everything we're sharing is just opinion, you guys. Karen says, definitely, if they're sticking together, it would be harder for one of them to sing like a canary. And Jess thinks your theory is really good also, Lisa. Hi, Aristocat. Zoots and Boots says, chemical restraints is where some family members may keep kids in sedated state. Well, if they're doing that, it's not legal. So they are breaking the law if they're doing that. Hey, Cookie. All right. PJ said, Katie reported early that she was giving Respirodol that night, the new medication. Let me pull that up, you guys. Let me pull that up. All right, so let me pull that up. So that's a medicine for, it says it's for schizophrenia. All right, let me make sure I'm looking at the same thing. Okay, so let's look at this together. Okay, so my source on this is drugs.com. Respirodol. It is an antipsychotic medicine that works by changing the effects of chemicals in the brain. It's used to treat schizophrenia in adults and children who are at least 13 years old. It's used to treat symptoms of bipolar, manic depression in adults and children who are at least 10 years old. It's also used to treat symptoms of irritability in autistic kids who are 5 to 16-year-olds. So Sebastian was 15, so that makes a lot of sense. So let's look up what some of the side effects are. It says you could take it with or without food. Do not mix with cola, so don't mix it with soda or tea. It can take several weeks before symptoms improve. Let's see what the side effects are. Okay, so hives, difficulty breathing, swelling of your face, lips, tongue, or throat. Call the doctor if you have one of the at once if you have uncontrolled muscle movements in your face, tenderness. Well, this could be men or women though in the breast area. Severe nervous system reaction, very stiff, rigid muscles, high fever, sweating, confusion, fast, uneven heartbeat, tremors, feeling like you might want to pass out, low white blood cell count, low platelet count, high blood sugar. And then common side effects can be headache, but dizzy, drowsiness, or feeling tired. But it can also cause agitation, anxiety, and a restless feeling. So I don't know, if she was using this or not, but it's definitely, I think, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So let's take some more of you guys' questions. You guys have really good questions. Let's just say, so basically she's saying that Katie Proudfoot and Chris Proudfoot, I don't know if she's saying that. I mean, I guess that is kind of what she's, yeah, that is kind of what she was saying. Thank you guys all for being here today. Karen said, I believe it was premeditated because the last fun day in custody hearing of Faith on March 3rd, I think, overdosed by coercion of Chris Proudfoot, or Chris Proudfoot did it. Katie Proudfoot could have given him to Seth. And that is the theory of the video I just showed you of the mother of the child with autism. The dog should track the mom's scent. Yeah, we don't know if any of that happened. Lisa said, thank you. Makes sense to me. I think they call it a false hit because Sebastian wasn't there, but his scent was there in the water. So if you guys missed it, what Lisa's theory is that she thinks that whoever did this washed themselves off in the pond. Washed their hands, washed themselves off. Cookie says something must have happened with him near that pond. Jill said, this is so sad. Pepper said, Jess, at 7 p.m., Seth Rogers channel, he's having Gabby Petito's father on there. And yeah, so that, so Seth Rogers has a channel on YouTube now. And so Joseph Petito, Gabby's dad, will be on there. I thought it was the other way around. I thought Joseph was interviewing Seth. And maybe they are, and maybe they're just doing it on Seth's channel. Kung Fu Panda said Chris stated he didn't want Sebastian around his daughter and was trying to get custody. Where does that leave Sebastian? Yeah, great question. And Jess says, I agree. I think the retention pond is part of this story. I think it is too. Well, you guys, I think I'm going to leave it there. I just don't want to overdo it on my very first day back. I do want to say thank you to our red carpet VIP Autism GMA ×3, to our producers, George Brown and Jazz, Sasha Angel, Not So Saintly, Debbie Jo, and Jane J. To our channel members, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for standing by me while I was sick, you guys. It really meant a lot to have your kindness and support. It was really rough. And I just really wanted to make you guys aware of what happened so that this does not happen to you or someone that you love, because it does happen so fast. From start to beginning, you can be gone in 12 hours. So it can happen so fast. And if you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video. So I love you guys. I'm grateful for each and every one of you, and I will see you on the next one. It won't be so long until the next video. And if you guys want me to do the 4th of July, I could save everything for next 4th of July. I did have an awesome party planned. But I feel like that we might have already passed on that. But if you'd like to see the fireworks, I could maybe do that just with the members only too. If you want to see that, just drop a comment and let me know.